So why I failed at NaNoWriMo and what am I going to do differently next year? So if you didn't know, NaNoWriMo is the National Novel Writing Month in which writers from all around the world, or anybody actually from all around the world, can participate, and they have to write 50,000 words in the month of November for their novel. So the novel would be 50,000 words long. So this was my first year participating in NaNoWriMo, and I completed around 20,000 words, but I did not reach the goal of 50,000 words. And first I'm going to list out why I think I did not complete the goal, and then I'm going to list out what am I going to do differently next year so that next year at least I might reach the goal. So the first thing is that the Write Together-a-thons, right, which were there in the beginning of NaNoWriMo, which were there on the first and the second day, I think those were really motivating for me. So if you don't know, Write Together-a-thons are like, it'll be hosted on YouTube by NaNoWriMo, and one of the NaNoWriMo volunteers would be the moderator, and there would be a guest author, and then all the writers who are writing their 50,000 word novels would also join the YouTube live stream, and we would be chatting in the comments, whereas the moderator would ask some questions about the writing process of the author to the author, and the author would answer those questions, and then the author would give an optional prompt, and then we would all start writing. They would put a timer, and we would write for like 25 minutes or 20 minutes. So there were a lot of these Write Together-a-thons on the first and second day, I think, and I attended them, and I was very productive on those 2 days with my writing. But then after that, when there were not many Write Together-a-thons, I wasn't writing at all. And I think there were some Write Together-a-thons on the other days as well, but I wasn't participating in them because they were happening at odd times for me, because I was in a different time zone than the people who were setting up the Write Together-a-thons. So it was like 3:30 a.m. in the morning and 4:30 a.m. in the morning, so I wasn't able to attend them. But they also have these recordings of the Write Together-a-thons, but I was like, it won't be like the real thing, so I wasn't looking at those as well. So I was just, without the Write Together-a-thons, it was very difficult for me to write, since I just got into the habit of attending them. So that was one of the reasons, and the next reason was I wasn't consistent with it. So every day, if you write like around, I think, 1,600 words, you would finish 50,000 words by the end of the month. So I wasn't doing it every day. I was not able to maintain this streak. I was writing for 3 days, and then I was not writing for 4 days, and then again I was writing for 3 days. So I wasn't writing every day of the month. So that was one of the reasons. And the other reason was, towards the end of the month, I was traveling. So I think for around 12 days of the month, the last 12 days of the month, I was traveling. So since I was traveling, I wasn't having the flexibility to write as I would if I wasn't traveling. So that was one of the reasons. And the other reason was I wasn't having a fixed time to write. I would just write whenever I wanted to, and then I wouldn't write, and then so that's why I didn't have a fixed time, and that's why every day I wouldn't, automatically be like, oh, it's 5 p.m. I need to write. So that was one of the reasons. And another reason was I was pantsing the novel. So pantsing and plotting are two different writing techniques. Plotting is when you already have a plot outline ready, in which you know that these are the main events which are going to happen in the book. Like for example, like there's going to be a prince and a princess, they're going to meet, and then they're going to go on a war, and then that's how they'll meet, and then they fall in love, and then they'll have an argument, they'll break up, and then again they'll make up. So there is a plot outline, right? This is just a very basic plot outline. There could be many advanced plot outlines where even small minor events are detailed. So that's one of the writing techniques, that is plotting, in which you already have a plot outline ready. So the next technique is pantsing. So pantsing is when you do not have an outline, and you just start with writing your novel, and then you just create the plot as and when it comes into your mind, and you just write the story without having an outline. So that's what I was doing. I wasn't having a plot outline. I was just writing the book with stories, with ideas which were coming into my mind as and when they were coming into my mind. So I didn't have a fixed idea of what I'm going to write. So every time I have to write, I have to think what I'm going to write, and then I have to think of the words and the sentences and the setting, and then I have to write it. So it was very complex. So I think for competitions like NaNoWriMo, it is better if we already have a plot outline, because then it becomes very easy to write. Pantsing is also a good technique. I think it lets you bring more creativity and more flexibility into your book, but for such competitions, I think plotting is the best way to go. And the last reason why I think I failed was because I did not do the research for the book beforehand. So for example, while I was writing the book, I was going on ChatGPT and I was like, what did people eat for breakfast in England in the 1950s? Because I honestly didn't know, but my book was set in that time period and I wanted to describe a setting where people are eating. So I need to know what they are going to eat, right? So I had to research such small things also while I was writing the book in November because I did not know them. So I think for competitions like NaNoWriMo, it is better if we already research such things and keep them ready before November starts, so that when November starts, you already know what kinds of foods these people eat and what kind of weather is there, what kinds of names do these people have, the time period and the location where your book is set in, because it makes it much more easier for you to describe such details and you won't have to research them. So a lot of times I was researching these things and a lot of time was getting wasted and I wasn't able to spend time on writing. I was spending time on researching. So that was one of the reasons, and this brings me to the end of the reasons for failing list. And so let's get started with the with the list of what am I going to do different next year. So the first thing that I'm going to do different next year is that I'm already going to keep the plot outline ready. So in October itself, I would decide what my plot for the novel is going to be and what are the major events which are going to happen, the character names. And the next thing is I'm also going to do the research in October itself or maybe in September, so that I don't have to do the research in November. So obviously it is unrealistic to expect to do all of the research, but I would do at least some of the major research, like what are the food items which are eaten in the place, in the time period which my story is set in, what are the names of people in that location and time, and what are the weather conditions in that time period and location. So such things I would research and keep. And obviously while I'm writing the novel, there would arise certain circumstances in which I would need to do more research, and that research I would do as and when I'm writing the book. And the next thing that I would do is I would not depend upon the Write Together thons and the motivation that they give me, but I would actually use the Pomodoro technique, so that whenever I want to write, I would create a timer and I would itself write, because that's what they do in the Write Together thons as well, right? They have a timer and everybody writes for that particular time. So I would itself use the Pomodoro technique whenever I'm writing, and then with that I'll get the motivation to write in the time period which I have set in the timer, like 25 minutes or 20-minute periods. And the next thing that I would do is that I would have a fixed time for writing. That is, I would write at 5 p.m. every day, for example, and I would keep up with that for all the 30 days of the month. And the next thing is I would have a fixed place for writing. I would keep a designated place where I would only write my novel in the month of November. And the last thing is that I would not travel, because as I said, I was traveling for a huge part of the month in November, and that was one of the major reasons why I could not finish the NaNoWriMo challenge. So next year I would not travel during the month of November. So these were my top tips of what I would do next year so that I don't fail. So these are my tips to myself so that I don't fail in NaNoWriMo next year. But I'm actually really glad that I participated, even though I did not complete the challenge, because it was the first time I participated, and at least I wrote 20,000 words, which is more than what I have ever written in any of my novels which I have started. Because usually I just start a novel, I just write 2,000, 3,000 words, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this novel, it's really terrible, and I stop writing it. But that wasn't the case in this book, because I had to write 50,000 words, right? So I kept going even if I felt that the book was terrible, which it wasn't. Obviously, I feel like everybody who writes anything, whatever they write is really valuable, and it could add value to at least someone if we edit the book properly, proofread it, and with some polish, any book can become good to read. So I believe in that, and I believe every story should be told and read. And so next year I would follow these tips so that I don't fail again. But even if I fail again, I would still participate in NaNoWriMo the next year also, because I think it is a really amazing challenge to keep you writing the entire month. Thanks for watching.